One dark night on the moon, a baby dragon named Clog was born. When he had grown up, he was found by a spaceman who became his friend. How did he get to the moon, he wondered. The spaceman told him the story of his dragon family that had lived on Earth near a small rural town. Some were killed by the people near their home, and the other dragons had left the area. As a little boy, the spaceman had sent the last local egg to the moon in a rocket to keep it safe. He was sad about the dragons being killed, as they were quite friendly. They just looked scary. The fires they were blamed for starting had in fact been started by lightning strikes. The dragon was sad and angry after hearing what happened to his family. He decided to get revenge on the people that had killed his family. The spaceman told him that things had changed in the town near his old home. The town found that since the dragons left, their town was raided each year by bandits who stole their crops and burned down homes. They had been trying to find the dragons to say sorry and ask them to come back. When the dragons had lived there, strangers were too scared to come to the area. Clog asked the spaceman for a ride to Earth. The spaceman said he would be happy to take the dragon back to Earth. They hopped into the spaceman's rocket and returned to Earth. Clog was still angry that his family had been killed and driven away, but the people were so happy to see him, he decided to forgive them. He decided to look for other dragons to ask them to come back home. A dragon seems to know where others are with their magic minds. Clog set off to find dragons in the deserted wildlands. He finally found a group, and they said how hard it had been to find food and live in the wildlands, and they agreed to return to their nice old home near the town. The people said they were very sorry for their mistake and now knew it was not the dragons that had started the fires. They said how much they had missed the dragons. They would never again forget that the dragons had been their friends. The dragons moved back into their mountain caves and were happy to be back in their ancient home. Some months later, the bandits returned to steal what the town's people had grown. The bandits rode horses and had big swords in their hands. There was a huge battle, and the dragons joined with the townspeople to fight the bandits. It was very noisy and lots of blood as the fight continued. In the end, the bandits were driven off the land and never came back. The town returned to being a peaceful place where people and dragons still live.
One day a very special baby was born. Her name was Ruby Red. She had red eyes and very sharp teeth. When she grew up, she had many different magical powers. Ruby Red did not know what to do with her powers, but they were magical. One day, in the forest, as she was picking some berries, a fairy called her and said her powers were very special to fight an evil witch. At age 15, an evil witch would try to steal her powers. Years later, the fairy came back to teach her how to defend herself against the evil witch called Samantha. Ruby practiced a lot to make her magic stronger. One day she asked the fairy why Samantha was bad. The fairy told her that Samantha was good when she was young, but became evil when she got angry and fought with her friends, and the dark side got into her. Why did she get angry? Asked Ruby Red. Well, said the fairy, she had fights with the other fairies who would not play games she wanted to play. She was banished away from the fairy kingdom. That is sad, said Ruby Red. But the fairy told her that Samantha would show her no mercy. She had better work hard at her training. As she trained, she realized she was being watched by her enemy, Samantha. She talked to Samantha even though there was no reply. Can we be friends? She asked one day. Never came a yell. After that, Ruby Red always talked as if Samantha was there. One day Samantha replied and they started talking. Over a year they became friends. Samantha had been lonely on her own. One day a group of vampires attacked the town. They grabbed Ruby Red and carried her away to their vampire kingdom. Ruby Red was very scared. She was locked up and taped to a chair. She was told that they had taken her because she was the princess of all vampires and they had been looking for her for many years. She was shocked to hear this. "Welcome home, Ruby Red," said vampires in the crowd. "It is great to see you after all these years." After a while, Ruby Red noticed that her magic powers were from vampires, folklore wizards, fairies, and werewolves. She found out that she was in fact a princess for the vampires, also a princess for humans, fairies, and werewolves. She should be queen of all the kingdoms. If the wars ended, she needed to be free to find out more. Luckily, Samantha had been following her. Samantha was free to use her magic hands to open the prison door and cut the tape from Ruby Red's hands. They were attacked by guards, but they were no match for Ruby Red and Samantha, who sent the guards to sleep and walked out of the building. As they lived in the forest, they watched the wars and could not understand what they were fighting about. People yelled, people died, and nothing was changing. Some did not even know what they were fighting about. It was just what happened all their lives, when the different groups met. Samantha and Ruby Red spoke many times about the wars. At first Samantha did not care as she did not like anyone anyway, apart from Ruby Red. After many talks, she agreed that there must be others like them, who did not want wars. Perhaps they should find them and go to a new peaceful place that kept all troublemakers out. They would make laws that said anyone who hates will be removed. They decided to make their plan known in all the kingdoms. Samantha said Ruby Red was the only person she trusted to be queen of the new kingdom. Ruby Red had the werewolf ability to run forever and not get tired. Her magic also made her as quick as lightning. They made posters outlining their plan, and Ruby Red ran through all the kingdoms at lightning speed and pinned the posters on trees in each kingdom. The poster plan showed that the new country would welcome any peace-loving creatures, and the forest would be the center of their kingdom. To their surprise, many came to be part of her kingdom. It had enough creatures to defend against attacks, and the magic of Ruby Red and Samantha was very powerful when they were attacked by the other kingdoms. The other kingdoms realized that the new kingdom was too powerful to defeat and decided to keep away from them. The kind fairy came to join them and told Ruby Red how proud she was about her, as she was her granddaughter and had made a place of peace. They lived happily in the new kingdom, and many new creatures came to join them, including a surprising one, a dragon.
Why was there war? Ruby Red named her new kingdom Amity. It started to grow, and life became easier as more people came. Clog decided to find out why the other kingdom was attacking them and see if a lasting peace could be worked out. He loved talking to the children as they played. He saw how much happier they were in the time of peace, and lots of good food for families. They all went to school and were very bright, clever, and loved their country and friends. Surely the children in Enemy Kingdom would be better off with peace. Samantha said she would go with Clog and find out why they were being attacked. Ruby said she would stay and organise the buildings and farm work that had to be done in Amity. In the Enemy Kingdom, Samantha managed to get a message to the young king. She would like to talk with him. To her surprise, he agreed to a secret meeting. the young king told his story. He said he thought that he would soon be removed by the new people who controlled his country. When his grandfather was king, the country had peace and prosperity. The experts said they should grow their population to share their great way of life with others, and it would give them more people to make them all better off. They opened their borders to all new people. One group of people kept to themselves and dressed in their traditional tribal clothes. They were an identifiable old tribal group. Most new citizens in the kingdom had accepted the way of life with peace and helped the country to grow. Some men in the new tribal group were not happy with the ways of the new kingdom. They wished to live the traditional way that they had for generations, with total control over their women and children. They wished to get rich and powerful, as do all newcomers. The easy way for the aggressive few young men was to take over the criminal gangs they identified in the new country. This gave them some power and money. Others were attracted to their wealth and power and joined them to get money. The leaders discovered that if they identified smaller groups to attack, they got more power and money. They killed and drove out most smaller groups like the werewolves, vampires and fairies, as those were forbidden in their old tribal culture. The trouble was that they were running out of enemies. They picked people enemies on the basis of their religion, if they were educated, what they ate, how they dressed, if they were richer than most, had more than one house, and other identifiable reasons as a focus for their followers to hate and attack. When they ran out of enemies in the kingdom, they said that the new hard times that had come to the kingdom were the fault of Queen Ruby Red. Her riches and plentiful food must have been stolen. She had forbidden citizens like werewolves, fairies and vampires. They would attack Amity to free their people to enjoy their traditional old ways. The new group had taken over the government, and while most people longed for peace, he had no power to stop them. That was the reason they were at war with Amity. Clog said he had an idea.
Amity at war. After their meeting with the young king, Samantha and Clog hurried back to Amity to debrief with Queen Ruby Red. They had many talks with advisors and then reviewed the information to make possible solutions to stop the war. It was clear that the people in the kingdom that was attacking them wanted peace. The group that had taken over their government was very powerful. It was made up of people who hated and people who were greedy for money. They did not tolerate anyone who opposed them. Clog said attacking them would also hurt some innocent people, so that would be difficult. They all agreed that the first thing to do was identify who these people were and where they were. Perhaps the young king and his followers would provide the information. What could they do once that information was available? Clog said he could just go over there and do his fire trick. Samantha said that their magic was not strong enough to move the bad leaders and all their followers to prison. Ruby Red talked with the people and thought she would share her ideas with Samantha, Clog and the young king. Why were their followers? Some were too scared that their families would be bullied and their lives made miserable if they did not join the bad leaders. Others liked the extra power they got from being part of the bad group. They all liked the gifts they got, as the bad leaders had gained great wealth by getting power. The solution she had arrived at was to vanish the wealth and money of the bad leaders and give it to the people. This would greatly reduce the number of followers, and the bad leaders would be stuck with no money for weapons and gifts. They agreed with her idea and started to work out what to do.
Ruby Red and the solution to the war. On a visit to the king's palace, he told Ruby Red that he would soon lose power and was worried for the peace-loving people in his kingdom. He would no longer be able to provide them with safety. Their lives would soon get very difficult with bullying and the theft of their wealth by the new leaders. Ruby Red said she would come back to him after talking with the people in Amity and getting their agreement to an idea she had. A plan was worked out with the people of Amity. They decided that they had plenty of room in Amity. It would be good to have more people who shared their values. They would build homes and farms for the new people when they arrived. There was plenty of work to be done, making farms and facilities that would help them settle down in Amity. Extra hands were welcome, as there was a lot of work to do to house and feed the extra people. After all, the current people had been in the same position in other places and had chosen to live in Amity. The only condition was that any people who caused trouble in Amity would be sent back to their old kingdom. The king said that he would move to and stay in Amity. It would be a message to his people to follow him. The king watched Ruby Red in the loving way for the people. Others noted that he was very fond of Ruby Red and never stopped looking at her when she was around. After all, she was stunning in looks and intelligence. She was also a very caring and powerful person. Ruby Red was seen giggling a lot when alone and talking with her friend Samantha. Clearly, love was in the air. Amity made it known that peace-loving people were welcome. Many people quietly left the old kingdom and moved to Amity. They were made welcome as Amity accepted people from all different cultures. There was no prejudice against different people. Vampires, werewolves, and others like fairies and dragons, if they wished to live in peace. The new children made new friends, as did the adults. They all settled down and worked to have happy lives. They said that they would fight to keep the peace in Amity if they had to. Ruby Red and Lucius the King spent a lot of time solving problems that the people had. They also spent a lot of time talking and holding hands, Clog the dragon said to Samantha.
Crystal the unicorn called for help. Ruby Red sensed the call. She, Samantha and Clog the dragon came to find out what the problem was. Crystal the unicorn said she was losing her magic powers as her magic horn kept getting smaller. No doubt she had been cursed by a witch. Samantha used her witch senses to track the spell back and knew where they would have to go to find answers. In a thick secret forest was a village of witches. A young witch came to meet them and said her name was Emerald Red. She said she was lost and alone, so had settled with the witches in this village. She had been looking for her sister Ruby Red, who may not know that she was her younger sister. This was a huge shock for Ruby Red, Samantha, and Clog, but there was no mistaking that the sisters' faces looked the same. Ruby Red hugged a sister she did not know existed, and there were a few tears from all the girls. Clog went and leant on a nearby tree. Dragons do not cry. Emerald Red asked how Ruby Red had known she was there. Crystal the unicorn explained that the reason for their being there was that they suspected that a curse had been placed on her by a witch in the village. Emerald Red said she knew several nasty witches in the village that did not like unicorns. If a unicorn broke one of the 5,000 rules, it was an excuse to punish it with a curse. The girls asked Crystal if she had done anything that counted as breaking the rules. Well, she said, my mummy asked me to do some housework and I shouted at her that I was too busy to worry about silly jobs. She was angry and told me to do as I was told at once, but I ran away. That was when my horns started shrinking and the magic I was learning became less and less successful. You have been naughty, said Samantha, and that is breaking the rules. What do you think about that, Crystal? Oh dear, said Crystal, so it is my own fault. I promise to never behave like that again, and I will go and say sorry to my mother. The girls said that Crystal was young and there were many mistakes to make and lessons to learn from them. I know I have made many mistakes in the past, Samantha said. Let us try to find the witch and get her to remove the curse, as it really was not such a terrible crime. In the village, the witches were on the green having a night picnic at a campfire. When asked who hated unicorns, the witches pointed at a witch with many magic power tattoos on her face. The old witch with tattoos just growled at the unicorn. Remove your curse, said Samantha. Clog said I could remove you. There was fire breath coming from him. The witch made a spell that put out his fire for a day. The witch just screeched and jumped about. Ruby Red said to Samantha, perhaps if we join our magic powers, we can do something. If you remove her tattoos, her curses will also vanish, said Emerald Red. The girls were surprised that Emerald Red knew magic, but then again, she had the same parents as Ruby Red, so she would have the same powers when she grew up. Ruby Red talked with the witch and asked her to remove the curse on Crystal. She said she would not, and she would be able to put spells on all of them. Ruby Red had a magic battle with the witch. There were bolts of lightning and explosions that scattered the other witches, who feared for their lives as the battle was huge. In the end, Ruby Red won and the tattoos faded from the witch's face. The witch and her curses and magic powers also vanished. Crystal was saved.
As they spent time together, Ruby Red and Lucius fell in love. Lucius asked Ruby Red to marry him. After some thought and talking with Samantha, Emerald Red, Clog and Crystal, she made up her mind to marry Lucius. The wedding plans were made and huge cakes tiered on pillars was ordered, as there would be many guests at the wedding. Ruby Red, the radiant bride, wore a small tiara and a gown that shimmered. The bridesmaids and maid of honor had pink dresses. Emerald Red was told to keep a close watch on the bridesmaids, Poppy and Pansy, who were known to be very naughty. Samantha thought that she had checked everything for her best friend Ruby Red's wedding and it would be a great success. Lucius, dashing and slightly nervous, had practiced his vows in the mirror so many times, even his toothbrush knew them by heart. Clog helped Lucius prepare and was chosen to be best man and guard the wedding ring. The ceremony was set in the grand room and enchanted garden of whispering pines, where the flowers whispered gossip and the squirrels wore bow ties. Samantha fussed around, worried that she had missed some small detail. She viewed the flower girls with suspicion and again told Emerald Red to monitor them closely. Clog, the best man, had one job: do not lose the ring. He lost the ring. Samantha told Emerald Red about the lost ring. They organized a search party with Crystal the unicorn, fairies, and others who knew magic. They questioned the guilty-looking dragon about where he had been, so that they could start their search. Where were you when Lucius gave you the ring? They asked. He said he was at the pond, so that was where they started to look. Crystal made a spell that would help find lost things. A swan held up an old wet boot while others found useless stuff in the pond. Clog said he had gone to the wedding reception room next, so off they went. We will check the grass all the way back, as my spell should make the ring shine, said Crystal. In the wedding reception area stood the towering wedding cakes. The 4 separate cakes were on different platform levels and held apart on Doric pillars. The multi-story towering masterpiece of marzipan coated in dazzling white icing was decorated with different colored icing flowers on each level. It was guarded by a stern chef named Bruno, who was worried, as it was starting to lean over, as the pillars sank into lower layers. He already tried to offset the lean and level up the cake by putting cardboard padding under base of the tower to make the cake look vertical. The flower girls, twins named Poppy and Pansy, were supposed to walk up the aisle with the bride, scatter petals, and do nothing else. As the ring search party entered, they noticed the twins sneaking towards the cake with spoons in their hands. They were desperate to steal and eat a delicious-looking flower from the cake. Why should they have to wait? Emerald Red gave a yell and the girls froze, in case they were turned into frogs. Poppy and Pansy, what are you thinking of doing with those spoons? Asked Emerald Red. Nothing, said the girls. We were just looking and planning what flower we may be allowed to eat later. Put those spoons down and come with me. Poppy dropped her spoon under the wedding cake table and the girls dived under the table to get it back. Poppy returned holding a spoon and Pansy a very shiny wedding ring. Thank goodness, you found the lost wedding ring. Despite the chaos, Ruby Red walked down the aisle to join Lucius, who was waiting with a guilty-looking dragon, holding a ring. They exchanged vows and Lucius put the wedding ring on Ruby Red's finger before their first married kiss. Their kiss was met with cheers, confetti and rogue squirrels, in bow ties, who threw acorns at the wedding party. Food and dancing were enjoyed by all until midnight.